If a picture can speak 1,000 words, then this pixel quality says it. So I woke up very recently, like a few minutes before, and I realized it's Labor Day, so there's no school. So I really just set a bunch of timers for no reason. Anyways, um, I didn't really have an idea for anything, so I'm just gonna talk about like ancient Greece. That's about it. So ancient Greece was as most languages would have like an ancient version, like how Old English goes from Latin speaking to the Celts. They have a Celtic runic language, and then that evolves into Anglo-Saxon, and then Middle English, and then just English. Greek is a bit more of an odd thing because it was actually divided into different different segments, different territories, pretty much on every part of it. Like each island was its own thing. There's a bunch of them just in the mainland, and they all had different languages, but they were all still a form of Greek. They had different alphabets and they spoke slightly different, but it was still Greek, so they were able to combine it later on. But yeah, they all spoke different things, which all um which all evolved from three other forms of Greek. Hold on, I don't actually remember the name. I just remember that one is called Attic, which I'm pretty sure comes from maybe a Greek word, because I don't know why it would just be like stored in the attic. Maybe because it's old, but I don't know. But it's Attic, like a basement of the ceiling. There's Ionic, there's Doric. Yeah. They all evolved from that, which those alphabets all evolved from. What, I guess there's like a giant group of people, like a whole country, got one alphabet and then evolved separately. Maybe, but their alphabet comes from Phoenician, and um, I'm not sure how true this is, but I've heard that there was like a language that the Greeks also evolved from, since they don't have all the same letters as Phoenician. They have a they have a few different ones. Like how the Greeks created vowels. Before, like in Phoenician, they didn't have a vowel. They just had like two letters that were just the vowel. It was an apostrophe. It meant nothing except for a space. Um, but then the Greeks made vowels so it was easier to distinguish words, and so you wouldn't have to like lengthen a word a bunch of times with more apostrophes. I feel like that might have come from the language they took from, but and this next thing I'm gonna say, I'm not sure how true it is because I highly believe in the Phoenician part of it. I was gonna say theory, but I don't think it's a theory. But there was a language that was spoken in a island by Greece. So then they went said that the Greeks went over there speaking Phoenician, took their alphabet, made a new language. That's what I heard. I don't know how true that is though, because it was talking about the alphabet really. And it's also said that language was this might have been a dream, but it said that language was found on like some in an island where the Mayans and Aztecs originated. Well, there were Aztecs on an island called Aztec land. That's an English name, but I guess maybe it just did some um evolved similarly around other languages, calling it that. But it was Aztec land. There was a few Aztecs up on there, which then left to go into mainland Central America. and they became the Mayans. And it's said that Aztec land over time just kind of sank over time. Well, because that happens a lot. Like, there's a country that's now completely virtual because the whole country was sinking. So, in a way to preserve it, they just made whatever was left into, like, the internet. So that island sank, and it's said that the Greeks actually went over there. They saw the Aztec land, and it kind of got simplified to Atlantis over time. And it's it sank because I guess they went back and they didn't see it, so they just figured, oh, it's probably under the ocean, and that's where the Atlantis story comes from. That could be very much possible. Like, many people probably believe that story. It's probably been taught. It very well could happen. However, imagine the Americas are here. It would be a, well, yeah, close enough. Americas are here. We've got Europe here. And then here's Greece. That's a bit uneasy. You also gotta get around. Um, imagine Italy's. Imagine Italy's right here. Greece is here. They gotta go around Italy if they were sailing, or walk over and then move their boats entirely across the whole country, and then sail all the way across the other side of the world, where they don't even know there's other things there. And then there's like the biggest ocean in the world. I don't believe this story, but some do. And the Greek languages, the Greek dialects were based on cities. That's just why it was divided by different segments of mainland and entire islands. But then they all connected together into Koine Greek, which is the language spoken now. The Greeks invented a lot of things. They made vowels, they made wine, they possibly made wax, but I'm not sure about that. However, they did create theater in a way. I'm not sure if there was like some sort of a predecessor, but they did have a stage that was like a flat platform, and a giant like cone around it where everyone was like sitting on it so that you could hear it very great. Because the way the sound waves were gonna travel up there. Everyone could hear it perfectly since they didn't have microphones or technology back then. Well, in a way, you have ancient technology, just not electronics. But they did that, and instead of like a normal theater, they just had like 20 people in a line who memorized the entire like 10-page story. They just memorized the whole thing and they just said it out loud all at the same exact time. Called Gregorian chant. And it sounds pretty weird. It was honestly would have been pretty hard to even understand what they're saying at all, to be honest. I don't know why they did it like that. Let's see if I can show an example. Damn. Yeah. It's very echoey. Well, been even more echoey with the way their theaters were built. So it was probably very hard to understand what was going on. But at some point, Thespis, uh, Thespis randomly just thought, what if I act these things out? No one had done that before. somehow. Took him that long. So he started acting out what people were saying. And that's why an actor is called a thespian, because it's named after Thespis. And over time, that just became way more popular to a point where they got rid of the 20 people. They had just one man acting every character until afterwards they started introducing more and more characters if there needs to be more people at, at the same time. And then they started adding masks so you could figure out who was who. And also because, like, there was two genres, comedy and tragedy. And the reason for the mask was, I think it was mainly for tragedy, because those can feature a lot of gore, and you can't really do that to a person. So you gotta get a mask which you can still very clearly tell it's artistic and not real. So if there was gore on the mask, it was fine, because the Greeks did not like gore. They really didn't. So whenever, so then they would actually have the Gregorian chant people back. There wouldn't be like 20 of them there, but they would narrate what happens as the person goes behind the stage and gets their stuff. And that, the Greeks created Deus Ex Machina, which means God of the Machine, and it's where there's like an abrupt ending. They call it God of the Machine because they had like some sort of a weird crane machine made of wood that someone could just turn around, which had like a string on the end of it, which they would, well, not like an actual thin string, but like some sort of rope that they would tie around someone who would play a god, and and that, and then sometimes they would just end stories very abruptly by by just adding God there, just like, hey, all your problems are fixed. You don't need to do anything the same way. Like at some point, there's like a this one play where everyone was mad at each other. Like, oh, you killed that guy. That was my friend. I will make you eat your brother as a pie. Oh, you just did that. Well, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna kill you with a pie, poisoned pie. Oh, you killed that. That was bullshit. I'm gonna kill you with a pie. They just kept doing that a whole bunch. And then it ended with God just going, guys, you don't have to keep killing each other, and it just ends. It was weird. And so they could end stories like that if they didn't know how to make an ending. But there are some pretty interesting stories that don't end that way. I've heard of three stories, actually four. There was Agamemnon, Medea, Oedipus, and Oedipus II. Oedipus Rex the king. I don't know. Apparently it was Oedipus Rex, not just Oedipus. That's weird. Um, yeah, they did that. No, I'm gonna actually tell some stories about it. So, Medea was a. So let's start off the story. We've got a character. His name is Jason. He is a Greek soldier, and he's on on a boat with a bunch of other Greek soldiers, and they're going to an island to find the golden fleece. They go there, and then Jason finds Medea, who is the princess of the island, and is also a witch. Maybe the rest of their family has powers too. I don't know. It's just that she is a witch, and Medea immediately falls in love with Jason. And then finding out that Jason wanted to steal the golden fleece from their family, she just killed her whole family for that to happen, and all the guards, magically. And then Jason steals that, goes home, take Medea with them. Medea lives there now, and then they're together. They have two kids. They're like 7 and 4. I don't know. They're having a good time, and then at some point, Jason tells Medea that he's divorcing them because he wants the married princess to give the kids a better life. Because Jason cares about the kids, Medea cares about Jason. That's how the story goes. So Medea gets really mad at that she actually gives gifts to both of her children and tells them to give them to the princess. And it's like a beautiful crown, beautiful robe. And then randomly it catches fire for no reason. And then the only person in the room is the king. And then the king tries to go save the daughter, to save the princess, tries to take the robe off, doesn't work, and now he's pulled in by the robe, and they're both just lighting on fire. And then Jason hears all that screaming, he goes in and realizes the king and princess have just melted, they're burned. So then Jason realizes, oh wait, where's my kids? So he starts to go look around, and then he opens it. Then, like, behind one of the doors, there's Medea holding both the children with slit throats. And then she leaves on a dragon. She just rides a dragon into the sky. And that's a very important thing because in ancient Greece, you needed a funeral, you needed a grave to be able to go to the afterlife. So since she just flew up into the sky with the bodies, they're not able to form a proper funeral, and now the kids are just stuck in limbo, which is like the midland of heaven and hell, which a lot of people still do believe to this day. Limbo is just midland for if you're not able to go to heaven or hell. Like, those kids went to limbo because they weren't able to go to the afterlife, but they still died. Most people, if they're like neither good nor bad, go to limbo. And that's Medea. And Agamemnon is a very interesting story. And it's Agamemnon is a Greek soldier, and he goes onto a boat with all the other Greek soldiers. It's different because the boat doesn't work. There's no wind to power the sail. So then, Agamemnon goes to the top of a hill, asks, like Zeus, probably, asks him, where's all the wind? We need wind for the boat. And then Zeus says to Agamemnon that in order to get the wind, he has to kill his daughter. And obviously, the daughter wouldn't be on board with that. His wife wouldn't be on board with that. So instead, he had to stage a whole wedding. And so he told his daughter they're getting married, and the daughter was fully on board with it. They went to the top of the hill. Scenery, definitely. That's why. They go up there. They're in the wedding outfit. The whole family's there, and then they just killed their daughter right in front of everyone. And it was at the top of the hill, so now Zeus could see it very easily. And then Zeus immediately puts wind to the boat, so Agamemnon has to run very fast to the boat. If they make it, they get to the other island, they win the war, they defeated the others in the battle, whoever it was. They come back. Agamemnon is home after the big battle. The wife welcomes him home, and then she's like, "Oh, I don't even care that you killed my daughter. You won the war. That's good." And then it's just like, "Yeah, come step on this nice purple carpet." Instead of like a long red carpet, it was a long purple carpet. Still a long carpet, pretty good. He walks onto the carpet, and then to go upstairs where there was like a warm bath waiting for him. And then randomly his wife just kills him right in the bath. Like, stabs him a whole bunch of times in the chest. Agamemnon dies. And it's important that there was a purple carpet because a purple carpet was reserved for the gods. Why did Agamemnon walk on it? Probably his ego. Yeah, so it was reserved for the gods. So because of the fact that he was a human and he just disrespected the gods very much, he went to hell or whatever their version of it was. And that's Agamemnon. So far, no god is saying to end the story, and there won't be. So in Oedipus, there's King Thias. I think that was his name, King Thias, and he he takes his son to a fortune teller. The fortune teller says something absolutely horrific to the king, saying he's gonna grow up to kill his father and fuck his mother. And then the king is horrified by this, and he thinks he can stop fate. He can stop the future. The fates have already decided the story. It's gonna happen at some point. But instead, he throws Oedipus into the woods, hoping he'll be eaten by wolves. He gets raised by them instead. He lives somehow. Years later, there's this drunk guy in a bar. He's just messing around everywhere, and he's told to leave. So he leaves, bumbling around everywhere, and he doesn't see where he's going. So he goes on the road, and then there's like the horse and carriage that the king is on accidentally runs Oedipus over. The king immediately runs out to check him in. Like, are you okay? And then the angered drunk guy just stabs him. It was Oedipus. Okay. I think before this it was established that Oedipus had a relationship with the queen, not knowing he was the prince. So so it was with his mother. He just killed his dad. Uh-oh. And then afterwards there's a fortune teller that I don't remember this part, but I think it's that there was a fortune teller. The fortune teller was there, told Oedipus what just happened, showing that the fate just came true. Oedipus is horrified. He goes home to check on his wife. She hanged herself. And then Oedipus goes into his room. He gouges his eyes out with like a needle. I don't know how. And then the story ends there. He gouges his eyes out because he doesn't want to see what he's just caused. His parents are both dead. And no one even knows he's the heir to the throne either. He's caused such bad from that. Was it his fault though? Or was it fate? Everything's fate's fault at that point though. And I'm not gonna be talking about the next Oedipus story because it's literally just actually the next Oedipus story is that Oedipus is old. He's very old, and he's walking around with his daughter to some place I don't really remember, and he tries to find a good place to rest and die of old age. He's just blind, so that's why he's walking around with his daughter, and just randomly introduces all of his children, randomly. He shows up, and then go fight back in the war. Okay, it just keeps happening a whole bunch of times. I don't know why. It was pretty lazy way to introduce all of them. This didn't need to be its own story. You just introduce them in a normal way in the next one, because there's a few stories, though only the first two are talking about Oedipus. So then Oedipus and his daughter go to the place. Oedipus just finds a good bush to rest in. He dies, and then story ends, I guess. The next one is about his daughter. I didn't read it yet, so I don't know what happens in there. It was very boring. Those were some Greek stories. The Greeks, I don't know what else to talk about. The Greeks had a lot of philosophies. They were they can be considered some of the smartest people with how they philosophized about the way a life should be, philosophy, the way the world is, fact. Did a bunch of math stuff like Pythagoras figuring out the equation for a triangle. I'm kind of confused by Pythagoras' theorem, to be honest. It's like, if it's an uneven triangle, it works perfectly. However, an even triangle, 1 plus 1 is not 1. But I guess it's supposed to be for, like, an abstract triangle. But imagine. So they all had these great theories. They were all true, especially the math ones, because those ones were like not really the real world. You don't have to really measure a triangle in the real world to even have the idea. You have to look at a diagram of what you've just thought of and just went, yeah, that seems right. However, the Greeks did not prove things very well. They just had a theory, thought, that seems about right, and it just carried on with their day. They didn't test stuff very well. Meanwhile, the Renaissance people actually tested stuff a bit better. That's why it took so many tries to get the airplane from Leonardo da Vinci. I don't think he was ever able to. But if they still hadn't tested it, then then we wouldn't even have an airplane. You blame a terrorist, I blame gravity. Like, that's how it would have went. It's about as much as I can really say about ancient Greece. Many ancient civilizations had, like, some forms of paper. Like, sometimes they just had straight up leaves. They made some form of paper, usually out of reed papyrus. Sometimes they would carve stuff into stone tablets, marble tablets, granite tablets, stuff like that. The Greeks melted stuff into wax. That's what they did. Back then, they only had uppercase, so it was easier to distinguish letters. And they were all incredibly angular, so that it was easier to put them into wax. And that's just how they wrote, I guess. They could. It wasn't just for like. Because imagine paper now. That wouldn't really be the same as a stone tablet back then. You imagine a stone tablet, you would imagine only a few people allowed to even write on them, or even allowed to even know how to write. But for the Greeks, it was accessible for anyone. You could even make it at home. Just make the wax tablet at home. Carry it around whenever you need to. Just write stuff. You could even erase somehow. Just scratch it out. It's gone. If you were a cannibal, you would instantly go to hell, though. If you mocked the gods, you instantly went to hell. That was Greek mythology. Theorem. Let me think of something. So the Greeks had a bunch of statues. A lot of times, people make fun of the statues whenever they see them in person, saying, "Let's go." What? It's like small dick. They would say that about them all the time. And to the Greeks, that meant they were smart. If it was bigger, they were a lot more dumb. Like, imagine brains and bronze. It was something like that, pretty much. Did the Greeks like smart guys or dumb guys? That's still a question I think about. Yeah, a lot of statues are like that. If it was of a god, to show that God is a literal god. He is smart, so he is a small. So but there's actually they actually had a lot of paint on them. The Greeks and the Romans put a bunch of paint onto their statues, so you can really easily tell who it was. And I've seen pictures of what they're meant to be like with the paints on them, and they are incredibly realistic, even more than they are with no paints on them. Meanwhile, there's a literal museum that tries to indicate where the paint is and what it's supposed to look like, and they drew it so badly. Hold on. Because, look. Here's what a statue of Caesar was meant to look like. Pretty good. You can't see it, but that, you can still tell. Pretty good. Look what they did to him. My god. It's so bad. I don't like it. This looks worse. God. Let me see if I can find another example. It's all just the new one. There's no one for what it was meant to be like. They have an image of what the statue is meant to look like. This doesn't look like it's real. It looks like they just showed what it's supposed to look like, but they didn't know how to do that. Get someone that's actually skilled. Get a skilled artist to paint it. Don't don't just do it yourself. Don't let the scientists do it. I don't even know what to say about this. What is this? The statues were not in wax. Those were marble. I'm pretty sure. That's really the only example I have. None of the other ones, all the other ones were just like, I definitely do have doubt that the statues were meant to look like this. I have a lot of doubt. Where is that person's shirt? Um, because I heard a story that there was one, like, I'm not sure if the Greeks actually even believed in the gods at all. Because normally, if there was that much, it would be very hard to keep together all this stuff and tell stories just as if they were nursery rhymes, just to tell a lesson. Which is basically what they were. But if you believed in them that much, you probably wouldn't have a whole bunch of just, like, philosophy and math, figuring out how the world is. Because you just figure, oh, the gods made it perfectly. Like in the medieval era. But no. So I don't know if they believed in those at all, because it was all made by one man, Homer. He made everything. He made Earth. He made the gods, and he made a bunch of folklore, folk tales, stuff like that. He's the reason for all of it, so I feel like they might have not even believed in it at all. Especially since I heard a story where there was this one statue, ancient Greek statue of a goddess that was incredibly realistic to a point where a bunch of kids would always. There's a stain on it now. That's as far as I'll say. And if you did that to a god, I feel like that would be, in a way, kind of just mocking it in a way. You're disrespecting it. I feel like that would be pretty bad, but they didn't care. It's not like Christianity where you just baptize yourself right before death and then you're instantly fine. No, you did something bad, you're going to hell. So why were they fine with doing that? No clue. That's as much as I can really say about the Greeks, I think. I might talk about the Romans later on. The Romans stole everything. Spoiler.